Okay. There are two distinct groups of people in the world. Everybody will not accept that. Everybody will not believe that. Perfectly fine. We understand if we are Bible students, Bible believers, everybody is not going to believe in nor accept what Holy Scripture teaches. But do you, as a Bible believer and Bible student, accept it? There are two groups of people. You have the seed of the serpent and the seed of Elohim. We understand that the seed of Elohim is Israel. And I want to say the Israel of Yah, because everybody proclaiming to be Israel is not part of the Israel of Yah. We already dealt with that under me, Israel, or who is Israel. But the point I wanted to make by writing this on the board, when it comes to the seed of the serpent, there is a whole world system based on the seed of the serpent. The world system at large is based on the seed of the serpent. So when we read this, it says, listen again, talking about this woman, and on her forehead a name was written, Mystery, implying that the majority of the world does not even know what's going on. They don't. You have some people who are a part of the seed of the serpent, but they are considered to be woke. But in actuality, they're not woke. They're still asleep. Because they have not recognized the full truth of Elohim. They're still deceived. So they have a system in place that includes, what people deem to be good and evil. But it's not good and evil based on the word of Elohim. There's a difference. But let's move on. So the first thing that we're being told, she had a name on her forehead, Mystery. Now we want to make a comparison. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 7, Brother Shaul writes, he says, for the mystery of iniquity already works. Listen to that. Let me write this up on the board for you. Now the word iniquity breaks down to lawlessness, right? I'm going to break this down. Lawlessness, right? So when you break this down, lawlessness. Of course we know what the law is. That's the Torah. Okay, that's his word. Lawless means to be without law. Okay, now when you add this N-E-S-S as a suffix, what this means, a state or condition of being. So you're talking about the mystery, you see there's a secret, there's something that's hidden. The mystery of the state of being without the law. There's a mystery surrounding the state of being without the law. Listen to that. The world does not know that. They are deceived. You have people out there believing in things and they think that they have the truth, but in actuality, they don't have the truth. But it's a part of that system. That's why they come up with the idea of truth being relative. See, if I had, well, here's what they would say, well, that's your truth. That's not my truth. That's fine. See, truth is absolute. Now, I understand how people try to explain relativity and things like that. But here's the thing. Paper is paper. This is reality. Now, in another country, in another language, they're going to say paper, but they're going to say it in a term that's equivalent to what we say in this language, paper. But it's still them acknowledging paper. This doesn't change. This is not a car in another language. I know that may sound a little stupid, but you understand my point. In other words, reality, truth, absolute. See, people don't believe in the Most High. They want to give you all these different reasons as to why they don't. Fine. The word already told us you're going to have people who don't believe. He said, 2 times it says this, the fool has said in his heart, there is no mighty one. We already know that. So that's no surprise that I don't need to get into a back and forth discussion with anybody who does not believe in the Most High. You don't believe? Fine. You go your way, I'll go my way. We don't have to debate and argue about that. If you want to learn why I believe in the Most High and you're willing to have an open mind and listen and it's interesting, you know, people say that people believe in the Bible, they don't have an open mind. That's not the case. That's not the case. Our mind has been open. But because the mind has been open, we don't see as everybody else sees. The Most High, by His Word, allows us to see the world through His eyes. But let's continue. So that's the first thing he said. On her forehead was a name written, Mystery. Okay? But then, what's the next thing? Babylon the Great. Why go all the way back to Babylon? There's a reason. So historically speaking, let's go back to Genesis chapter 10. Bereshit. Beginning at verse 8, listen to this. It says, Cush became the father of Nimrod. He, talking about Nimrod, began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before Yahweh. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Now, why is this so important? This is what we got to keep in mind. After the flood, for those who are not familiar with the flood, now they have archaeological evidence that there was a flood. I tell you, a great documentary to watch is Genesis History. I believe that's the name of it. And I believe you can also find that on YouTube. Is Genesis History. Check that out when you get a chance. But anyway, there's evidence that there was a flood, right? Okay. So according to Holy Scripture, there were 8 people who survived the flood. Noah, his wife, their 3 sons, and their 3 wives. 8 people. Okay. So you're talking about a family, you're talking about people on this planet who, beyond a shadow of doubt, know that the Most High exists. Why? Because the Most High warned them that this was going to happen and instructed them to build the ark to protect themselves as well as the various animals that they brought onto the ark. Okay, now, after that, time passes. What happens? Man is evil. We're going to look at that in another lesson. By man being evil, this person comes along. Now when it says the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, the first kingdom that was established after the flood was Babylon. Keep that in mind. Now, just making this a point. This was the first kingdom that was established. That does not mean it was the greatest kingdom. Babylon didn't reach its greatness until Nebuchadnezzar came along. Okay? That's why we get into the dream that he had, the vision Daniel had, and the world ruling empire that would exist from that point on. Okay? But the very first kingdom, according to the word, was Babel. So what he wants us to do, he wants us to go back. Mystery. Babylon the Great. Something happened. What happened? Remember what the name Babel means. To confound. Now, let's make a connection. Remember what he said to Nebuchadnezzar. He said, you, O king, you are that head of gold. Right? Remember, the head is the control center. Now, if the head is the control center of this image, which represents these powers that's going to exist, right? If the head represents to confound, what is that teaching us? So here's this woman who now has control of this system, this beast system. And she is identified, number one, as being a mystery, something that's hidden that people don't know about. What else are we told? Babylon the Great. Now it's talking about the confounding of humanity. That's what's being implied. That's why it's referred to as Babylon the Great. But let's continue. It says, the mother of harlots. See, now, when we think about this woman, when we contrast that woman with the woman in Revelation chapter 12, you basically have the one woman that's sitting on a beast representing the seed of the serpent, and the other woman representing the seed of Elohim. That's the, again, you have two groups of people in the world today. Those who serve the Most High and those who don't. Now, for those who don't, they can easily cross over to become those who do. But the flip or the reverse can also happen. There are those who serve the Most High who can also go back to that side and no longer serve the Most High. That is also a possibility. Okay? But anyway, two groups of people. Now, if you're looking at the women in their symbolism, okay, this woman, it says, is the mother of harlots. That means that she is going to have an offspring of other women just like her. What harlotry? Think about that. Okay? Think about that. What does that imply? See, now I'm going to give you something to think about. Matter of fact, I'll do it this way. Why does this exist? Statue of Liberty. What's the point? What's the message? Why does this exist? Lady Justice. Think about it. These are just symbols in our world today. And very specifically, they are symbols here in the United States. Matter of fact, one more for you. Now we talked about this a little while ago. Columbia movies. You ever seen that symbol about the woman standing up? All of these things are symbolic. There are other examples that we can show. Okay? But when you think about, well, I'm going to give you one more. When you think about Sophia, right? The word Sophia, which ties now to wisdom. But not the wisdom, not the wisdom of Elohim. Sophia represents the wisdom of the world. Like Brother Shaul said, when we speak it, we don't speak according to the wisdom of the world. See? There is a wisdom that the world possesses. So when you think about the contributions, as we were talking about before, of these other nations and how it impacted the world, and what we have today in the world. See, if we go back 100 years, and I'm just saying, let's imagine everybody alive right now is 100 years old, regardless of how old they are. 100 years ago, when we were born into this world system, it was already established. There were many doctrines, many philosophies, many religions that were already established 100 years ago. See, what we don't know, because we are just being born into this world system, we don't know what took place for it to get there. You see? It's just the norm for us today. But at one point, it was not the norm. You see? But let's keep going. So when it says, again, the mother of harlots, but then it says, and of the abominations of the earth. So this woman, what is symbolizing is everything that is corrupt in the world system. So let's go back to Devarim, which is Deuteronomy chapter 12, verses 29 and 32. Listen to this. When Yahweh, your mighty one, cuts off the nations from before you, where you go in to dispossess them, and you dispossess them, and dwell in their land, Be careful that you are not ensnared to follow them. After that they are destroyed from before you, and that you not inquire after their gods, saying, how do these nations serve their gods? I will do likewise. And let me just stop right there. This was a major problem for Israel. Okay? Now I want to mention that right now, because something else is going to come up shortly. All right? But this was a major problem. What I mean by that, Israel always wanted to dib and dab into what everybody else was doing instead of sticking to what Yahweh Elohim commanded them. That was a problem for our forefathers. That's why we, as the descendants of Israel, are in our current predicament. Keep that in mind. Verse 31. You shall not do so to Yahweh your mighty one. For every abomination to Yahweh which he hates, they have done to their mighty ones. For they even burn their sons and their daughters in the fire to their mighty ones. Whatever thing I command you, that you shall observe to do. You shall not add to it, nor take away from it. And that's what Israel did. They either added to the word, or they took away from the word. Which is why you got Israelites, Hebrews, and Jews running around here saying that they represent Israel, but everybody doing something different, because somebody's added something to the word they should have never added. Somebody has taken from the word that should have never been taken away. That's why we're so divided today, and we should not be divided. We all claim to be adherents of the Torah, yet we doing things differently. That's not the spirit of the Most High, which is why we going this route in the first place. Israel needs to be brought to the awareness something is wrong. What is wrong? We got people out here teaching this word who have not been called by the Most High, not been sent by the Most High, and they are deceiving the world. That's what they're doing. Under the guise of being an Israelite, a Hebrew, or Yahudi. Keep that in mind. Let's move on. Revelation chapter 17. Pick it up in verse 6. Then he goes on to say, talking about this woman, I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints. What comes to mind? And with the blood of the martyrs of Yahushua. When I saw her, I wondered with great amazement. Look at that. In the vision that he's having, John said when he saw her, he was amazed. Now let's make some comparisons. Let's go to Daniel chapter 7 again. Let's go to verse 19. And see, why do we keep going back and forth to these different things? Because he said precept to precept, line to line, a little here, a little there. So he's been revealing these things, but now by his spirit, he's got to piece these little things together for us so we can see the bigger picture of what he's been telling us all along. And continuously, the revelation did not stop. Revelation 7:19 says, Then I desired to know the truth concerning the fourth beast, which was different than all of them, exceedingly terrible, whose teeth were of iron, and its nails of brass, which devoured, broke in pieces, and stamped the residue with its feet. And concerning the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn which came up, and before which 3 fell, even that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spoke great things, whose look was more stout than its fellows. I saw, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Now, drop down to verse 24. Now, this is the first passage that we just read, 19 to 22. This is where Daniel was asking that messenger to explain these things. So that's why he said, then I desire to know the truth concerning the fourth animal, etc. Okay, but now in verse 24, he's being told what these things mean. So in verse 24 it says, as for the 10 horns, 10 kings will arise out of this kingdom. Another will arise after them, and he will be different than the former. And he will put down 3 kings. He will speak words against the Most High. Hear that? So the question is, who's speaking words against the Most High? But the seed of the serpent. And will wear out the saints of the Most High. Okay? He will plan to change the times and the law. Now, that part we hadn't really gotten into yet, but keep in mind, the mystery of iniquity, lawlessness, and think to change times and laws. And see, he specifies times and laws because when we talk about the time, what is he talking about? Appointed times. Don't you know? I'm just going to mention this and keep it moving. Don't you know Israel? And I'm talking about the Hebrews, the Israelites, the Jews, and I'm lumping everybody together who claim to be Israel, regardless of what you label yourself as. Don't you know we do not keep the festivals at the same time? Don't you know we are not even calculating time the exact same? And think to change times and laws. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Listen to what he says. Verse 25. He will speak words against the Most High, and he will wear out the saints of the Most High. He will plan to change the times and the law, and they will be given into his hand until a time and half a time. We'll look at that time frame another time. All right, let's go to Revelation 13 and verse 15. Trying to keep things a little simple today, not branch off on too many subtopics, because when you're dealing with the word, there are a lot of different subtopics you can branch off into. But I didn't want to deal with the times, and dividing of time at this point. But Most High willing, we'll deal with it later. All right, Revelation 13:15. It was given to him, and now this is talking about the little horn, remember. It was given to him to give breath to it. And it's talking about this image that he was making to the beast. To the image of the beast. That the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as wouldn't worship the image of the beast to be killed. So now, here's the question. Is this woman that is riding the beast the image that was made to the beast? Think about it. Let's go to Revelation chapter 17 and pick it up verse 7. It says, the angel said to me, why do you wonder? Because remember what he said.